Hello everyone. Let's see if this is working. The usual, right at the start of the stream, kind of paranoia. Hello everyone. Let's see if this is working. Yeah, that is a nice amount of latency. I will say it's maybe 5 seconds, which is nice. That's a nice
Is
thing.
that on low latency or ultra low?
That's on low. Ultra low is.
Yeah.
I'm not an ultra low man. I'm just
No,
not that.
low's good enough, I reckon. Also, could you share your screen with me so I don't have, I mean, a 5 second delay is not that bad,
No,
but
I'll share my
it's
screen
still a
with you.
delay.
Just got to do the usual kind of setup. Everyone can see the high quality background image I've made as the title card for the stream.
Nice.
This literally took me dozens of seconds to draw. It was back-breaking effort. I don't know if my mouse hand will ever recover. It's what was I was playing a game and someone was using a touchpad. It was amazing to behold because their quality of gameplay was pretty decent.
Well, gaming on a touchpad, man.
It's hard. That's hardcore. I remember playing Minecraft on a touchpad once. For anyone who has tuned in, which I don't think so yet, because we're at 0 views, we like to do a little just bit of bantering along for a bit. If you're watching the VOD later on YouTube, just scroll ahead until you see this image change, because it won't be changing until we actually start doing what we're going to do in earnest. We're just spending a little bit of time having a bit of a talkaroo.
Yeah.
Also, let us know if you can hear or not hear. Actually, I should just have time playback. Having a bit of a talkaroo.
Yeah.
Also, let us know if you can hear or not hear. Actually, I should just have time playback. Having a bit of a talkaroo. Oh wow! Don't hit the play button while you're the unmute button when you're streaming, because the audio comes back through OBS and you hear double of everything. So sorry I subjected everyone to that. I just got to adjust the mic levels a bit. There we go.
Nice.
Radio, getting things lined up for the stream. Oh yeah, so get the we're going. So how have you been, Jake?
Not too bad. Pretty standard, really. Not much has changed as far as life, work, isolation, everything else.
Yeah, it's funny.
Still just doing my thing.
I feel like, you know what's funny is there have been times in my life where I would have dreamed of having to stay at home for weeks on end, and 3 weeks in, I'm like, get me the hell out of here. And I've developed I've had it since like Saturday week ago. It started after I'd eaten something bad and was naturally sick after that, and that kind of just turned into this like cough, like I'd irritated my throat, and so I've had this dry cough it got a bit worse today, but I'm hoping it's nothing. But because I've got it, I'm not going outside at all, and so not even a good walk around the block can be had. So I've got to. Yeah, I'm working on a screen share, Jake. Patience. He just messaged me. VMware. There we go. You should see my screen now.
There we go.
No one else can yet because it's all hidden away.
I get to see it in real time, exclusive.
We'll start showing it at 8.
Yeah, it's fine.
So yeah, it's gone from like I don't know. Like my throat's a little bit sore. But apparently, a sore throat isn't one of the symptoms. Like you'll get a cough.
It's like a really dry cough or something. Yeah.
My cough's also not that dry. Like there is a little bit of. So I'm not particularly worried. I had a chat with the doctor today though, and they were like, "Well, you can't come in and we can't test," which is as far as I know, like par for the course. I mean, at the moment, basically, unless you've been confirmed to have been in contact with someone who's definitely had it, which I haven't.
Is that what they're saying? Is it?
Yeah, it's just like hang tight. If it's bad enough to go to hospital, I'm guessing they'll test you at that point. But with any luck, I am not in that category because And with any luck, I don't actually have it. It's just a cough or a, a head cold or whatever coming on. I'll be fine. Um,
Yeah,
of
cool.
course, write those words on my gravestone. Otherwise, 4 concurrent viewers. That's amazing. Well, I suppose we should do a little bit of like security newsy stuff before we
Well, there's a lot going on with Zoom, I guess, is probably the biggest
Yeah.
security kind of news debate, whatever you want to call it, going on at the moment is.
Well, they've had their client apps. Some of their clients have issues. Sorry, I shouldn't put my hand between my mouth and the microphone. I just realized I probably cut off my volume. So that is kind of interesting. So someone we work with was talking about how Zoom had gone from basically their main thing was functionality and getting people into meetings, not security or availability. But now, for the next 3 months, they've ditched all other kind of efforts and they're just focusing on security and availability. So
Which is kind of good that they've at least acknowledged it. Like their CEO's come out and apologized and done a bunch of other things rather than try
yeah,
and either hide it or deny it. They've actually sort of gone, yeah, we screwed up. We're working to fix it.
well, because unlike other platforms, it's a little bit hard. Like it's very easy to get people into Zoom meetings. Like so, another
Oh
group of
yeah,
people
yeah.
I'm involved with, they got a Zoom meeting up and running. I didn't have to sign up for an account or anything. It just I was in. So I can see where like the kind of threat landscape has shifted there now that there's a lot more people using it, and in a bunch of cases, maybe there are companies using it or people in companies using it where their like internal security policy would be like no, don't use unapproved messaging services or don't use Zoom, don't use Teams, don't use Slack, don't use Discord. And because they're behind the 8 ball in terms of technological adaptation, like there's some companies that have probably had to have gone through a lot of change in the last month. You know, we
Oh
talked
yeah, definitely.
we talked about RDP exposed on the internet. Um, yep. Oh, um, so Daniel Bees just said cough cough Intel cough. Um,
Yep.
what are you aware of what happened there? I've kind of just been too busy doing other stuff. I haven't paid attention to too much of stuff in the last week.
I've kind of briefly read some article titles, but I haven't actually read into detail of what happened. I think it's to do with like the caching. There's another sort of
Oh,
caching issue with CPU, Intel CPUs
I,
again.
here we go. I've just
Like I haven't read the full white paper or anything else about it, just that it's something to do with caching on Intel CPUs.
that one. This one's from March 6th, so it's a month ago. Talks about another processor flaw. This was from today, I'm guessing, or is this?
It wasn't today, but it
Um,
was like recently. I think it's this one, cache out. Is that the one you're reading?
um sorry, there's a cough. I'm just trying to find it. So cache out. This is the
Yeah, if you
problem.
do
Like
cache out, I think that's the one he's talking about.
googling for news is useless because it gives you the news from like 3 weeks ago, and Google News only wants to tell me about coronavirus, even though I've
Oh,
said I'm
okay.
interested in other
Yeah,
stuff.
so their response
Oh,
was opposite to
it
Zoom.
it was in March.
Rather than
Um,
admitting their fault, they've just gone, no, everything's fine.
Intel doesn't offer much detail on the individual flaws beyond the fact they allow the usual trio of privilege escalation, information disclosure, and denial of service. They're like the three horsemen of the cybersecurity apocalypse, right there. Like,
The three worst things you want to
yeah,
happen.
it's only those three things.
It's
It's not
only
too
them.
bad,
Don't worry
guys.
about it.
You know, you'll only lose all your data. Let's see. Um, LVI. Okay. Yeah. Spectre meltdown. Oh, this is the problem with reading an article and trying to talk about it is you just read random bits of it.
Random words. So
Um,
the
but that is the
like
same one as yeah.
it has
So
its own website, like the where it was announced or released or whatever, and the white paper doesn't have a date on it, so I don't actually know when it all happened. But it was recently, like the last couple of weeks.
when you Google cache out, that is not the first result.
Oh, okay.
Um,
It's cacheoutattack.com.
yeah, gotta love branded attacks. Like,
Yeah.
has it been a while since we had a last properly? Like, I reckon there's enough room for them to be every once in a while. Um,
I don't know who decides which ones are allowed to get named.
I think
Or,
it's the researchers name it for branding purposes. So normally you end up with just getting a CVE if you've gone via the like that vulnerability disclosure process. But
the first question and answer, am I affected by this vulnerability? Answer, probably yes.
yeah, I mean it's the same as with University of Adelaide. Is that it? Adelaide University of Adelaide, Australia. That's pretty
Looks like
cool.
it.
Some
Yeah.
Australians doing some stuff. Yeah, the
From
it was the
Data
same with
61.
it was the same with Spectre. Data 61. Yeah,
Yeah.
so CSIRO. So it's the same with Spectre and Meltdown though. They were like that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's affected every processor since 2018 sort of thing.
Starters being evicted from the CPU L1 cache. It is often transferred back to the leaky CPU buffers where it can be recovered by the attacker. Um, that's useful. I mean, I'm no wizard. I don't. I'm no genius when it comes to like CPU stuff, but
Not low level hardware stuff.
sampling reads. Oh, that's because you've got fill buffers between the caches and various other things. Interesting. I guess that's one to go and read up a bit more about. But yeah, classic Intel just going, there's no problem here. What are you talking about? Right, let's see if I can jump over to VMware without too many issues. Because it's almost time to get started. Actually, no, we've got a couple more minutes. What else does Reddit have to say? Go away, little. You know the annoying like bar that shows up the top of Teams. We use
Oh yeah.
Teams
Yeah.
to do screen sharing and the audio because it's probably the one of the better things. Here we are. There's OWASP's AppSec days are at the end of this month, virtual conference.
Yeah, I've seen sort of invite links and things like that going around for it.
I suppose it'd be good to tune into. I didn't go to the AppSec days thing last year in Melbourne, but SQL rollback hack. Technical analysis of Zoom by Citizen Lab is pretty scary. Okay, cool. Citizen Lab always do some decent stuff sometimes. Always do some decent stuff sometimes. And the problem with NetSec is it's also full of tool releases and then vulnerabilities and things that literally do not matter. Like, that's the challenge with so many vulnerability things. I reckon it's like 80-20 rule. Like, 20% of them are actually bad. The other 80% are just some dude with a blog, which, granted, I don't have it. I think it's a good thing that people can, like, go, hey, I did this thing, but, I don't know, it sometimes makes work hard when someone comes waving around, there's a vulnerability in this thing, and when you look at it, you're like, it
Is there
literally
though?
isn't a problem. Yeah. Yeah, like we've got this obscure system library where you might get a denial of service if there's a memory corruption or some garbage. But, you know, the server's running TLS 1.0 and we're not doing anything about that, so why are we going to bother patching the crappy, you know, library for the thing? That's always a battle when you're like, oh, maybe you should do this other better thing first. Right.
Yeah.
Set VMware. And it worked. Sweet.
Nice.
I just double check that switching over on YouTube. So, because we're about to get started, there we go. Cool. So, as you may have seen from the kind of awesomely drawn title screen, I mean, you know, my mouse work is unparalleled. We're going to be doing some more mobile app reversing. So, let me just make sure I've got all the right bits and pieces here so that we can talk about this as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, so last week we sort of went through the OWASP mobile sort of reversing challenge and just decompiled the app and did more of the crypto challenge of actually figuring out what the app did and how to find the sort of secret text that we had to enter. This week we're actually going to run through decompiling the app and patch it so that anything we enter into the input box is considered acceptable and gives us the little success pop-up that we hope to see. So
Also,
be more
also,
technical this time.
Also, I will say there will be a normal non-stream related video, hopefully showing up at some time if I can edit all the bits together. I stopped using Kali, so I started just flat Debbie and installing my own tools for the hell of it. So I switched out to that. So this is what I'm using instead. So uh, let's let's give it a test run.
Let's do it.
Streams. Data streams. I should have like done a -p and just created the next folder I'm about to create anyway, but reversing 2. Sweet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're using the what was it, OWASP MSTG?
Yeah, Mobile Security Testing Guide, I think, is what it stands for.
When
Um,
when Firefox decides to start up
but
blazing
yeah,
fast.
on their GitHub, they have a bunch of APK files and challenges for Android and iOS and things like that. And we're just playing around with level 1 to
So
practice our skills on
so
mobile reversing.
last week we did a more ghetto version where we just pulled the bits we need. So the level 1 challenge just in has an encrypted string and the key, and then you have to input some text that matches the key, and then it'll give you the flag. And
Yeah,
so we just ghettoed it up, and the flag is the encrypted text. So we instead of doing reversing and changing a value in the decompiled APK to true and whatnot, we went down the path of just grabbing the important bits out of it and then basically re-implementing the encryption functionality in Python and encrypting it with the key that we had, which is a valid approach. But at the end of it, we kind of felt it was a bit like cheating. It's, if your goal was, maybe to modify a mobile app and let's put a like malicious spin on it, you're a spy and you're trying to modify a mobile app, or you're going to, so that you can spy on someone. Just being able to pull some text out of an app and do some stuff with it isn't doing that. So this, where it's not really anything complicated we're doing, but this time around we decompile the thing and we're actually going to try and modify it and then recompile it and get it going. So this is kind of our base for doing this. So this OWASP MSTG just is a bunch of challenges. I've already grabbed it, so I've just got to remember where I put it. No, I just want ls /data. If I can type properly. Cool, it's there. So we want to go to OWASP MSTG. I think it's CrackMe's, isn't it?
yes.
CrackMe's Android level 01, and we want to copy that to our local directory. And yes, and we just want to go like that. And it helps if you use the command properly. I'm a genius. I can't even get CP working properly. Right, so we've got our APK. Let me get focus back again. APK files are effectively zip files, so you can, I think, just go and we'll see what happens. -d, I'll just call it zip test. Yep, so you can just extract it to a folder. However, there's not much you can do with this. The classes.dex is the bytecode for the Android app. Last week we talked a little bit about how how Android works and its kind of architecture. This gets kind of taken by the Android runtime and
Yes.
recompiled into lower level code again that will run even faster on Android phones. It used to be Dalvik, the Dalvik VM, which would effectively run these apps like you would Java, where it was bytecode. but nowadays these things get properly compiled down to, I think, just ELFs on the once they've been installed on the phone. So not that really matters for what we're doing. However, we don't want to do it like this. Although, I suppose we can run through what we did with. So let me rm-r zip test. So initially, what we did is I've also got a bunch of tools installed. So do I need to? No, I didn't. I didn't add it to my path. Tools, APK tool. Yep, that's what we want to run, and we want to run it. Oh, let me grab the right bits. So what we're going to do is use APK tool to extract this thing. This command, however, doesn't quite do what we want it to do, which we'll talk about in a bit. But following, full transparency, we've never really done too much Android app reversing before. I did some years ago, and I'd already forgotten how to do it.
Yeah.
And all I did was change the Opal app to work on a rooted phone. It wasn't that hard to find the root check and change something to a null. So
we sort of tried to follow some tutorials online, but found that they skip a lot of steps or assume a lot of knowledge. And so we spent a long time just making stuff up and trying a lot of different things until we finally got something that worked.
Which is good, because that's how you learn.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm not saying we didn't learn. It's just, hopefully this works out to be a good tutorial from end to end on how to actually do everything that we hope to do.
If we ls uncrackable level 1, it's basically the same thing as we did when we unzipped it. So APK tool in this mode is really just extracting everything. Okay, so then what we need to do is we're going to run dex to jar on that classes.dex to get a jar. So we're taking you through what we tried to do first.
Yeah.
And that patently didn't work, and we ran into issues, and we'll talk about our thinking and when we realized, the moment that we realized it wasn't going to work. So, again, that.
Yeah, and so dex to jar basically takes that dex file and converts it into a jar file, which it sort of says in the name. But the jar file is another zip essentially, but this time it contains Java classes and Java code files rather than this dex language.
I'm sure. Oh, here we go.
It's D to J dex to jar.
We probably would have figured this out earlier if I'd actually looked at this D2J Smiley.
Oh, there's a smiley one. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, no, that might have taken us down another path because we had to figure out how to do stuff with the smiley. So that might have just been equally confusing. Anyway.
Probably.
So dex to jar is a tool for, as the name says, converting dex files into Java code. It looks a lot like what JADX that you had that could read a. So JADX probably does something similar.
Yeah, so JADX can sort of open a APK directly, and you can export the decompiled code as a jar, which probably in the background does all of the same stuff that dex to jar does. It might even call it directly. I don't know. Yeah.
Classes.dex. Cool. So now we've got that. And so these tools, you can Google around for the APK tool.
I've put some links in the description.
Sweet. And dex to jar and stuff, they're all just around. You will have to install Java if you don't have Java installed. I just use the Amazon Corretto. 99% of the time, it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's what I've got installed on mine as well.
Just purely because I hate Oracle as a company, so I refuse to look at their advertising that they shove in your face. Now we're going to look at JD GUI. So JD GUI is just a nice. So we've got a jar file which is full of java.class files. So It's important to note that a Java class file is still bytecode. So all it's really doing is converting Dalvik format bytecode into Java format bytecode. And I think because the language APIs are very similar, it's pretty straightforward
Yeah,
to do.
it's not raw source code like you would get when you open the JADX or those types of tools.
And actually, you just spin up JDGUI. And actually, you got to go java-jar.
Yeah, because it's a jar file. Yep.
Yeah, because I'm a genius. I'm sure you can give it the actual path you want to open.
Every time I gave it a path, it didn't actually open the file anyway. I still had to do this to open it.
Where are we?
So
Streams. Mobile reversing. Okay. So this looks a lot like what you would have seen last week if you tuned in last week. We've got our various classes that do stuff. There's the Java for them.
yeah, and you can see that these look like raw Java code, but if you were to open these files in Vim or something like that, this isn't how they would appear.
No. So
Yeah.
to do that, this is kind of a bit like some of the other decompiler tools we're looking at for C apps, like what's the name of the Ghidra,
Ghidra, yeah.
will kind of reverse
Hey, Grub.
engineer C code that would have generated the assembly. And this is the same deal. This is just showing you the Java that would have generated you the class file, and that actually is then translated from the DEX, and that's why we see all these import Android app activities. And so we're about to jump into our next.
It's in file save all. Yeah.
So I just did this blindly. Let me get up to the right location. Okay, so this is just saving as a zip file all those things as jar files. So you can save them out individually or as a group. Again, we're just taking you through our dumbass approach to trying to solve this problem the first time around. Okay.
This is the first time around that failed. Yeah.
Unzip. We want to unzip the classes dexterjar.jar.source.zip.
Yep.
-d, and we want jar unzip. This is what we'll actually, this is what we'll call it. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of Java code, and before we do that, I'm going to just see if anyone's left any more comments. Oh, it's just
Grub said, hey, yeah.
Said earlier.
Okay. I've got chat covered.
That's nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is fire up Android Studio. I set myself up a handy dandy shortcut for that so that I didn't have to rummage around for it. Now, it's opened back to where we'll be at the end of the project as usual. So anyway, this is where we naively go.
We just thought, we've got raw Java code now. We should just be able to import it, compile it, edit it, do whatever we want.
At some point, this will occur to you like it occurred to us, hopefully before. So we get there, we get here, and we're like, great, we got all this Java
all this
here.
Source code, yeah.
And I'm like, it can't be. And I didn't think this was going to work, but I'm like, it can't be that Android Studio is, of course, using up all my memory. The memes are true, guys. I was like, it can't be as easy as just going like that. And a little build thing ticks away, and then you get this error, and you're like, what the hell is that? It's Google Wireless Android SDK stats thing. So a bit of research found that, and again, what I'm about to do didn't solve our problem. It just made that error go away. What was it? Settings.
It's changed the compiler, the build execution deployment. Yeah. Compiler to Eclipse.
Eclipse. That's right. And I was like, okay. And you just go make again, and then it finishes the build but does absolutely nothing, because I was like, I'm pretty sure you need metadata, with Gradle and stuff, you have to define how stuff gets built and dependencies. But we're like, this is not the right way to do it.
Yeah, libraries, dependencies, all that kind of stuff.
It's one of those moments where, because you have to go through the stupidity of something, that you realize, no, there's got to be a different way. And so one of the other things, and we showed this last week, was... Let me get back to the streams folder. There's nothing in there that I'm particularly worried about, but... I just like keeping everything neat. Let's go use existing folder. Is when we go and look at this in Android Studio, we get what's called the Smiley. So Smiley's kind of like a, I don't
The
know who.
assembly language.
Some dude created an assembly language that'll get compiled down to Dex and then reverse up to Dex. Um, and this is what you can modify without issues with dependencies and trying to recompile everything. But you can't modify it in file as read only. You can't modify it in Android Studio. Maybe there is a way to do it, and we did find that there is a Smiley module you could install. That, but I'm pretty sure that just did things like autocomplete and whatnot.
I couldn't get it to work. Yeah,
Yeah.
not to work in the way that we wanted it to.
To clarify, we're not Android devs.
No,
So we're security guys who have to use some of the same tools sometimes. So, but this did give us a chance to really look around and, which file was it that we had to, now, run through? We've done exactly what all the other things did. We just go like, edit Smiley, do stuff here.
But that's only because we were going to live stream the whole end-to-end process, and our note taking has never been very good.
So it was this one, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, static A. So if we go back to, I closed JDGUI, didn't I? Fucking genius. Okay. So let's get JDGUI up again, and let's open the file. So in our A class, we've got this function, which last week we identified as having, what was it? There is our encrypted text, and there's the key.
Yes.
To decrypt the text. Then it compares, all this is literally a catch for if this doesn't work. And then we've got it'll do if our input string, so this param string here, which is if you open the app, you type in what you think the flag is. If that equals the decrypted text here, return true.
True or false,
and then you get a specific thing, or false if it doesn't match. So if we go back to the Android Studio Smiley, there is our return P0, move result P0. Where is the comparison? Somewhere around here is the comparison. So all we really need to do is make this return true or 1.
Always return true, yeah.
Yeah, so that it always evaluates and we get through. I mean, that's also how you bypass root checks and Android apps and stuff. In more simplistic cases, like what Sydney Trains had with the Opal app at least a few years ago, where you just found one thing and you're like, return this.
It's the same way this app does root detection as well. It only does it in one place on app load rather than
that was back
frequently.
Main activity, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's back in main.
Yeah. So it was on create.
Yeah. So it calls those functions, and depending on the result of those functions.
Where is C? SG vantage point A.C. And then test keys, if SU exists. And for each of these, you would just change the return values like we are
about to do.
So what happens is there's also ways of hiding that you've got root. But generally when you've got root, apps can see binaries that they'll either be files they have permissions to that they wouldn't normally on an unrooted system, or there are binaries that are installed that aren't normally installed, like SU, and specific apps, and other kind of system stuff changes around. I, on Android, don't think root's much of a problem. I think it's a risk for users if they install rogue stuff, but given it's so much easier to install and set up a root environment on an Android phone, and you're not really compromising the security model like you do on an iPhone when you do it. And in fact, my Nexus 5X, which I just went through and reset up the other day to be nice and rooted and unlocked bootloader, it's really easy. You just literally go unlock the bootloader and then load up a custom recovery and you're away. It's really simple. Anyway, enough of that. So we know we need to edit the Smiley, but we also know we can't really do much in Android Studio right now. While we're here, I will show you what the app looks like normally. Just this is a refresher, and this takes a little while. So while that's happening, we will. Man, that's how my computer's got. Oh,
Yeah, because you got to reinstall the
yeah,
app. Android Studio treats it as an actual device. So when you run an app,
there it
it
is.
installs it on this virtual phone.
So there we go. There's an example. That's it not working. Um, do we have a copy of what the thing was from last week?
Is it in the write-up from last week?
It is not. I
It
mean,
was
I think so.
like, I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah. Anyway, if we put in the right thing, it'll go. Yep, that is correct. So
Yeah.
anyway, so not too much we can kind of do there right now. So we'll close Android Studio and save ourselves some CPU cycles, and we can close this. So what we actually want to do is use APK tool in a way that it also gets us that smiley, so that nice.
Yeah, so it'll export the raw Smiley files.
So let me actually history prep APK tool. So this was the one we ran, and we want to do that, but we don't want to do -d - sorry. We do want to do -d, but we don't want to do
D is for
-r,
decompile.
-s. So -r and -s remove all the other garbage. That if you wanted to just change an image in your APK file, that's what you'd do.
Yeah, so I think -r is something to do with like the resources, so it'll actually export like all the PNG images and things like that. And the S, I think, had something to do with sources or libraries, or like exporting the standard libraries.
So here we go. -s, do not decode sources. -r, do not decode resources.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah. Anyway, so we just want to do this. So I still had the folder there. It doesn't like extracting. I'm sure there's an argument to make it to a different folder as well. -o.
Oh, with output, yeah.
Right, and so now if we have a look at our uncrackable thing, we see there's a folder called Smiley. So
We also notice that there isn't the dex file anymore either.
yeah.
So it doesn't export the classes.dex.
So now we should just be able to do it like this. Rather than... what did I edit this in? I forget. Smiley, and then we want... S2.
I think we actually edited it in Android Studio.
That we did. We don't actually have to.
But we don't have to, no.
Uncrackable 1, and it was a... .smiley, wasn't it?
Yes.
So... I mean, it's not looking the best, but it'll do. Also, my ZSH theme does not gel well with the fact that I chose, like, 1982 Hacker Green as the font. Okay, so public static A. So
yeah,
one of
so
the
we
things...
can see at the top there that that's our function with our sort of key and secret encrypted text and things like that in it.
So one of the things you would think you can just do is return true. That's right. The Smiley gave us the syntax highlighting, so we knew we couldn't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
We also, I will set this to V0 for a second, but also, so you've got you use const to just define a constant value that's an integer, I think, or boolean, but booleans are just integers in Smiley as far as I can tell. So
Yeah,
we
they are.
thought it was just like, const, and then you could give it any name, like these V1s, V0s, P0s were whatever, so I could just go like...
Yeah, because we said like const those guys equals 1,
Z0,
like const those guys 1, yeah.
True. However, these aren't variables, they're registers. And I was like, oh, okay, we just have to use a register.
Yeah,
So
so those are
all
registers that have to exist.
so all we'll do is we just know we'll use a register we know the value of, and we just change it there. So that is all we have to do. Just dipping our toe into the world of like messing around with Android apps, I guess. But
Yeah,
that
and that's probably the most simple example that we could do
and if I
is
haven't
just force a true return.
messed things up, we should now be able to go back to APK tool, and instead of a D, we do a B, and we'll change the output to let's call this those guys.apk. Um, and path not exist apk tool.yml. What went wrong?
You pass it the folder, don't you? Not the APK itself.
You are correct. You are correct. I forgot to remove .apk.
Because you don't want to build the APK again. You want to
No,
build it
you
from the
can't.
source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a me error. Anyway, this is what happens when you have cabin fever. Right. So we've got our APK recompiled. Surely we can just run this, Jacob. Let's give that a try.
Oh, I don't know about this.
So
I mean, I think it's a good idea.
if we go profile APK and try and run, what's going to happen? What's going to happen, Jake?
It's
Well,
either going to work or it's not.
installation did not succeed. Install parse failed, no certificates. So when Jake tried this, he got some other error entirely. Like something about something being null. So it's good to know 2 times in a row we get that failure. But APKs need to be signed. They don't need to be signed particularly well, as we're about to
Yeah,
show you.
I was using a different tool to recompile and sign the APK, and I think the certificates or something were out of date or just didn't work in general. So
So we
what we
get
do is we generate our own certificates.
so we get an install fail because it's not signed. So
I'm sure there's probably ways on like a rooted device to ignore that error and install it anyway. But we don't want to do that. We're just going to try signing it so that we can get it installed on any Android phone.
so
Because in reality, that's what you're going to want to do.
So then what we need to do is we need to use so the Java SDK comes with a bunch of tools for handling. So in the Java world, you don't just deal with keys by themselves and certificates by themselves. You deal with
No.
this key store, which is kind of like this container. I'm sure it's like another zip file that's just passworded or whatever, but I don't actually know too much about them. But it's just a container for certificates. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new Java key store right in place. So key tool, gen key, and key store, what we need. That's the name of the key store file. The key we're going to create in that file is just going to be called crackboy, and it's going to be a 2048-bit file. 2048-bit
RSA.
key. Duh. Wake up, Reese. So it didn't like me for some reason. What was wrong? Oh, validity. We just need to give it some time. So I think we can just go 1,000. Nope, we cannot.
I think you gave it a date, didn't you?
Yeah. It's the problem is there was a copy and paste error in Confluence.
Oh, was there?
Yeah. Let's see if I can find a quick... Actually, I can just look at my like history. Duh. This is the great thing about having command history. So you can just go like history.
Oh, yeah, no, you did do validity 10,000.
And I've got to go grep key tool. We'll just copy that. It's nothing like a live demonstration. And then because we've got that dash n in there, so I'm creating a key called crackboy just because I felt like it. We key size and validity. Yeah. There we go. That's worked. You have to give it a 6-character password. I'm just literally giving it 12345 6. And then I don't care about any of this. And I just realized this. I went through this 3 times. There's a bit where it asks you to confirm everything's correct. You have to hit yes.
Otherwise,
Okay.
you just get stuck in a loop of spamming
I
enter
was there
and
and I
nothing
was like,
happening.
holy crap, this is a lot of things that ask me
There's a
for.
lot
And
of
then I was like,
questions here.
it's asked me the same thing 3 times. So that gets us our key store with the 2048-bit RSA key. So next we need to sign our APK. And so there's a couple of different options for doing this. I think there might be some Android specific options, but we're just going to use the Java jar signer option. So, and we're also doing SHA-1 for signature algorithm. I'm sure you can change that to something better, but again, I'm no like expert about all of the random Java tools that are available. I've never really had to play around with this stuff, so this is what worked. So this is what we're running with.
Yep.
But presumably any signature algorithm that is valid for jar signer will go there. It's like, like TLS ciphers where you've got very specific names. I'm assuming it's the same deal. You just have to figure out what they all are.
Anything with RSA, I assume, because we're using an RSA key pair. So
Yeah, it'd be like SHA-256, I guess. We can always try.
just
Doesn't
try and see what happens. Yeah.
doesn't hurt to try.
I mean, it says 3 lines above that we just generated a certificate SHA-256 with RSA. So
Sweet. Anyway, so we're using this key store and we're telling it to use this
the
thing, and then
alias
we're
of the
telling it
key
to
that
sign this
we,
thing.
yep.
Yeah. So, and to passphrase, and that worked. Obviously, it's a valid signature algorithm. Because at some point, Android's going to stop trusting SHA-1.
Yes.
Or SHA-2. Well, no, SHA-2 fine? I can't remember. Man, I certainly remember back in the early days of when I was doing like PHP web development, and people were like, at that point, MD5 was only just bad, and so most of the tutorials
Yep.
for passwords were like, just use MD5, it's fine. So, right. We then want to we want to verify. So, what we're going to do, just to check everything worked out properly. Of course, I changed its name, didn't I? So it's those guys.apk. Interesting. Why did that not work? Oh, I forgot to change. I see what I did wrong. I think. I signed the wrong thing.
Yeah, you signed the old APK, not our actual one.
Yes.
Yep.
Lots
That'll
of
do it.
mistakes. Lots of mistakes tonight. That'll be on the internet forever. And there we go. And it's telling us to sign a certificate of self-signed, which is, I would consider a minor problem. Also, the certificate will expire at 2047, which is pretty cool. So
Nice. That's 10,000 days from now.
I'll still be alive. So it is a bit weird that Android will just trust self-signed certs. You would think it would require you to get your cert signed somewhere else. Maybe the App Store requires stuff.
Maybe to actually upload it to the App Store, you do. Yeah, I don't know about that either.
And maybe that's what the untrusted sources thing is. I don't know. Anyway, so the last thing we need to do is we need to use... I don't actually think we have to, but in our kind of research for figuring out how exactly we play...
When we were looking at like recompiling and re-signing APK files,
Copy.
they pretty much all talked about using this zip align tool.
Why?
So we sort of just copy pasted an example sort of zip align command because
my copy and paste is no longer working properly.
your copy paste just decided it doesn't want to work anymore. Yeah, so we don't actually know if you need to use zip align, but we do it and it works. So, I mean, you could try in Android Studio just running the APK now and seeing if we need it.
That was some pretty bad Google gore. So all this does is it aligns data in files to 4 byte boundaries. So images and other raw files. So it means things can be loaded faster. They can use mmap. So which I don't 100% know what that is. I think it's some low level function that just means loading data out of zip files is a hell of a lot faster.
It's probably a low level, like a memory sort of addressing system so that it knows exactly how many blocks of memory because they're all aligned and easy to
I
manage. I
mean,
don't know. Yeah.
I suppose it's not the first thing you come across where alignment to byte boundaries is important. There was another thing that was like,
It's probably not
Jake,
even so much that it's important. It's just an optimization.
yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna run that. I'll need to remember to change the name of the. Nope. Oh, wait a second. Oh, you know what? That was 100% copying properly. I was copying the wrong thing. That's how out of it I am. Far out. So anyway, the advantage of having Android Studio installed and getting the virtual devices set up is all the tools are there. So
Yeah, so
by
zipper
def-
line just comes straight out of there.
so by default, it's in your user directory. Um, -v is verbosity, not version or anything like that. And we will call this one those guys, and we'll call the output those guys out. And verification successful. It all worked. So now we should be able to go back here, and we should be able to just go file, profile or debug APK. And if I've done this properly, it will work. If I haven't, I've messed up, and I apologize.
The stream will
Oh no,
mysteriously go dark and no one will ever know what happened to us.
yeah. Well,
We'll disappear off the internet forever.
I may have accidentally closed the YouTube stream management window as well.
That's okay, I got it.
They're easy enough to get back into.
I have it open
Sweet.
because I added the description with the links and stuff before.
Sweet. Okay, so it should have complained at me that it had to reinstall, and now if I just type any old garbage, this is the correct secret. But maybe it's actually something different, Jacob. Maybe that's our secret. That's also our secret.
Whoa, that's also the secret.
Uh,
We've got all the secrets, man.
Maybe it's those guys. There we go.
Yeah.
So that is kind of an end-to-end. Pretty.
A roundabout end to end.
Yeah, well, around about end-to-end. Also, with plenty of mistakes, because I don't know, it's just being at home all the time is doing my head in. But there's our kind of very high-level introduction to how you might go about faffing about with APK files. So if we remember at the start, we have our APK, we used APK tool, but we used the wrong flags in APK tool that skipped a bunch of stuff because some of the stuff on the internet tells you to, and then you try and do other stuff to view the files and go, how do I modify these? Do I like extract it, change it, recompile it? How do I do all of that? And it turns out that's a dead end. You just need to use APK tool properly with D to decompile. Then you go edit the Smiley, recompile. If it recompiles, you edited it properly. Smiley is just a like a low-level language for Dalvik.
It's compared a lot to assembly. It's like the mobile assembly language.
Yep, and then we do that, we recompile, we sign our APK, we do the zip align thing, which maybe we don't need to do, but we did anyway. And then you're good to go. So enjoy, and that's all for today. There's not really too much more to discuss other than that. So another nice stream. So I guess the next one we're going to do, I don't know if we'll keep doing the Android stuff or if we'll shake it up and try something else next week, but at some
we basically haven't planned that far ahead.
But we might start ramping up through these Android challenges over the next couple of months as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you think this has been interesting, let us know because there's also iOS challenges as well. So I don't know how we would go reversing iOS apps as opposed to Android apps. Just in terms of tooling and things like that, I've never done that either. So, I mean, that's something we could look at, or we can try and find something else completely different and new to do instead. If this was dumb and boring.
All right, Cake. It's on you to end the stream.
Time for
Cheers,
me to end
guys.
it.
Have a good. Yeah, you're the one with the in the YouTube control
I'm the
thing.
one with all the power.
Yes.
All right. I was so tempted right then to just click end stream midway through the sentence so that it was like, anyway. We'll say goodbye properly and then I'll end it. So see ya next week.
Farewell.